I'm Paul, the teen librarian at Gloucester County Library, and today we're going to be looking at Construct, which is now in its third version. I talked a little bit about this in the newsletter last week, but it is it's a real robust game engine that you can do a lot of things with, and rather than show all the pieces to it, because there's so much to look at on Construct, there really is. I recommend, if you go to Construct, this is the website you'll be at, and if you go to Learn, read through the documentation, look through the tutorials, they're really helpful. So today what I thought we'd do is try to quickly run through how to make a very simple Pong clone. Hopefully this wouldn't, I've never really done a run through of making a game from scratch on here before, but let's see how we can do. So you click on launch now. It'll bring this up, new version. Oh, update my version, I guess. Now it's been updated. Okay, so click on new project. Our new project. Hello, kitty. Pong clone. Now the preset, I already have this set for an SD landscape. It might not by default have that. That might be from something I chose before. But we're going to do landscape for 640 by 480. And click create. Here is here's our layout here, and you can see this dotted line here. That's actually the screen size that we're working with, so we might want to change that. Let's see here. So if you click on the screen itself, it'll bring up the screen on properties. You'll see layout here. Let's change the layout size to the actual size of our, let's see, for the 480. There we go. So that's actually the entire real estate of our screen that we're going to be doing. So let's right-click and insert a new object. And under General, we're going to do Tile Background. Oops, I want to do, let's actually do all black. And then, so we just made a sprite, but the sprite is just a block because we're just going to have a black background, so we're just going to stretch this to fit the entire screen. We might want to rename this layer, so we'll call this layer background, so we know if we get more layers, we know which layer this is. So layers, just like any kind of photo editing program, layers, if you have something on one layer, it can't interact with something on another layer, so you don't want the objects, like the paddle and ball, you don't want them interacting with the background. The background's just a picture. And in this case, it's just a solid color. Let's see. And let's make a new layer right now. Add layer at top, and we'll call this the paddles layer. You can call it gameplay, you can call it whatever you want. So we're going to work on the paddles layer pretty much exclusively. We don't want to worry about the background layer. So let's right click here, let's insert a new object. And under General, we want a sprite. And we can just click anywhere on the screen so we can move it around afterwards. And so for this, if you're going to draw, if we're doing something besides Pong, you can draw an image here or import an image. But we're just doing Pong paddles to make it very simple. So we're going to just fill it with white. And then we're just going to resize it to look like a Pong paddle. So we can just stretch this any way we want. Does that look like it's That looks kind of big enough, right? So that'll be our Pong pedal, and then I might just actually turn on the background so I can see. Okay, it's right. That's pretty close to the edge of the screen. That's about where we'd want it. So we've got the sprite selected. Let's add some behaviors. We've got to make sure the sprite's selected. Then go down to behaviors. Let's add some behaviors. Add new behavior. Under movement, we're going to choose the 8-direction movement. Let's X out of here. And you can see under directions, 8 directions, we don't want the paddle to move in 8 directions. Up and down, that's all we want to be able to do is go up and down. And I think by default it does the arrow keys, so you'll use the arrow keys to move up and down. Let's see. Set angle no, because we don't want it to change the angle of the paddle as we're moving. It's just going to be a flat panel moving up and down. Let's add another behavior. Behavior, add, and under general, let's say bound to layout. Bound to layout means the layout of the screen, so if we try to press up and it hits the top of the screen, it won't let it go any further. Same with down, so that way it can't leave the screen. Let's add behavior. Under attributes, choose solid. Solid will make it so the ball will bounce off of it. It will know it's a solid thing to collide with. Let's add that in. Now going to second player, we can right-click and copy this sprite, and it'll have all of the same attributes we just made for this paddle, but what we're going to do, we want to do a computer-controlled opponent, so let's insert a new object, and we're just going to do the same thing we did before, sprite, anywhere in the screen, we'll fix it later, fill it with white, and now we want it to be the same dimensions as our other one, so that looks about right, and what I'll do is 24 by 92, so we can just copy that over. Oh, I was really close. 24, 92, now it's the exact same size, and we'll stick it over here, and this position is at 44,207. So we don't want the same exact position, but we want it to be on the same Y position, so 207 I think is the one we want, right? So 207. Now it should be exactly across from it, and we'll put it around here. That looks good. Let's just change that to 207. Okay, so now we got an exact same looking paddle, but we just got to add the behaviors for it. Add new behavior, choose movement, 8 directions, and once again set angle to no, 8 directions up and down. So the next thing we want to do, make sure under default controls, right now it's selected, unselect that. Otherwise, the same up and down directions that are controlling paddle 1 will control paddle 2. We don't want player 1 to control both of them. I mean, you might want to do that, but that's not what we're doing here. One thing to point out that I didn't do when I made these two is change the name of the sprites themselves. So this I already named to player 1. This I named to CPU paddle. It's just going to make it a lot easier when we get into certain events happening to certain sprites. You want to make sure you have names that make sense. So for now we've got these paddles, and let's add one more object. We want to insert an object, insert sprite, anywhere in the screen. Once again, we're going to fill it with white. That's all we need to do for something this simple. And we're going to make a ball. Okay, if you hold down shift, you can do perfect dimensions there. So let's do a small ball like that. We'll call this sprite ball. Just going to put it right in the middle for now. Actually, I'm going to put it outside the field. What we'll do is we'll have, when the game starts, it'll spawn in the sprite, so we're not going to put it in the field right now. So that's fine up there. And so for the ball's behaviors, we need to go in, add some behaviors, and under movement, instead of the 8 directions, it's going to be bullet movement. And let's add that in. And here's the behaviors for the bullet. Right now its speed is 400. We can always change it around if we find it too fast, too slow. But for now I think we'll leave that as is. Bounce off solids, yes. Both of our paddles are solid. And actually I just want to make sure, did I make CPU? Did I give this a behavior solid? I didn't. Okay. Now it's a solid, now it'll bounce off solids. Okay. Alright, so it's set to bounce off solids. Set angle, we want to unclick that. We don't want it to set the angle. If we did that, when the ball is going on an angle like this, it would actually turn the whole square, which you might want to try it out. It looks kind of funky, but that's not, if we want it to look like an old-fashioned Pong, we don't want it to do that. So I think that's everything we need for the ball right now. What we're going to do is, this here is the layout tab that we've been doing here, the layout of the game itself. We're going to go into the event sheet, which is where you tell it, if this happens to this, then do this. So this is where a lot of the kind of gameplay elements are going to come into play. So we're going to add an event. Excuse me. And under System, on start of layout, so that's essentially when the game starts. That's what we want to do. We want to add an action when the layout starts to create the ball. We want to create the ball right to size and position. We want to set the position. And we're going to have it go to X and Y coordinate 200, 200, which should be around the middle of the screen. We're going to stay on this same event here and add another action. And this is also going to be, I believe, for the ball object. We're going to go down to its bullet properties. And let's see, acceleration, I think, is what we need to set. Angle of motion. So the angle of motion, because I think the speed is already going to be set at 400, so we don't have to change anything there. But the angle, we want it to be kind of in a random direction, so we're going to do random 360, and that should set us off on a random direction anywhere. So let's just save. Alright, so I saved, and we're just going to try out what we've got real quick and make sure that happens. Okay, you can see it did spawn, and I can move my paddle. It's a little slow. We'll probably want to change the speed of that paddle. It's kind of sluggish. Also, you can see it has kind of an inertia to it. We might want to change that too. But it did spawn the paddle, the ball. Went off in a random direction, but it just kept on going because we didn't make any walls yet. So, we're looking good so far, though. Make some let's insert some new objects. Make sure you're on... You probably want to be on the paddles. Let's make sure all these are on the right layout, on the right. Okay. I gotta move some things up to a different layer. These paddles, that paddle and this ball are on the wrong layer, so let's see here. Layer, paddles. Gotta make sure they're all interacting on the right layer. Okay, so on the paddles layer, insert a new object, sprite, let's just put it anywhere, and let's make this a color we can see easily. So I'm going to do red. There we go. And we're just going to make this long enough to fit along the screen. And it's on the right layer. Okay. I'm going to call this wall. Or let's call it top wall. Top wall. And then I'm just going to Control C and Control V to make a copy. Put one along the bottom. Call this one bottom wall. Let's add behaviors to make them solids. Because remember, we told the ball to bounce off any solids. Alright, I confused myself for a sec. Okay, so since I controlled and copied the bottom wall from the top wall, the behavior was already copied over as well. It did the same thing to both of them. That's handy. I forgot about that. So let's real quick, I'm going to save. And we will try it out and just make sure it should bounce off the walls. And there it goes. And it'll bounce off mine too. I still gotta speed up that paddle, it's very slow. But we don't want the bottom and top to actually show like that. So what we're going to do is, let's see here. So we're going to go down to bottom here under properties. And, initially visible, uncheck that. Make sure we do it the same. Uncheck that. So that way, it's visible for us, but when we play the game, there we go. So it's invisible when you play the game, so that way we can see it, the players can't, which is what we want. Now we need two more important goals, or important walls. Those are the goals. So they're going to act a little bit differently because we want the ball to get destroyed when it hits the goal, and also add a point to a score counter as well. So that'll be a little bit different. Let's see. So we'll go back to right-click, add new, insert new object, sprite, same as we've done before. And we can make these the same. Just make them same as we did before there. And we'll call this player 1 goal. Copy it over here. this is player 2 goal. And we also want to make sure these are invisible when we load up. We don't want to see the big red monstrosities we created. So let's go to the event sheet again. And we're going to make it so that when the ball hits that, it's going to do something. We don't want to just ricochet off like the top and bottom balls. So we're going to add an event. And we're going to have this event happen to the ball sprite. So we're going to say when the ball under, let's see, animations, appearance, under collisions, on collision with another object. And you can see we can choose the object we want it to have happen to. I notice I see the bottom wall and the player 2 goal. I don't see player 1 goal or top wall, so we might have to look at that and see why that is. So for now, let's do player 2 goal. So what do we want to have happen when it hits the player 2 goal? Let's add an action. We want to for the ball, under miscellaneous, it's going to destroy the ball. We want the ball to be wiped off the screen. And then we want to also add a score, a point to a score, which we haven't made yet. So let's do that now. So we're going to right click, we're going to add a global variable. We'll call this variable player 1 score, because it's going through player 2's goal. So, and it's a number. Initial value is going to be 0. Let's go ahead and add the other one too. Global variable player 2 score. So now we can go in and add an action to the ball, and it'll be to system. We want to add to a global variable player 1 score, that's correct. The value will be 1, which we're adding 1 to the value, so it's going to go from 0 to 1, which is what we want. Alright, now let's find out why we don't have the other sprites listed. Because when I changed the name to 1, I changed it to both. Okay, so I think the quickest way to fix this right now would be to turn on a wall. That doesn't matter, they do the exact same thing. So I'm just going to call it wall, because it doesn't matter. But the left and right goals do, so what I'm going to do is get rid of this instance. Leave player 2's goal in there, and I will add a new sprite and just do the same thing. Just remake that wall. And call it player 1. Or player 1 goal. Visibility off, and that should solve it. So now we can do the score for the other side too. So add an event when ball is on a collision with player 1 goal. And it's going to do the same thing. It'll destroy the ball. And add one in your system global variable, add to player 2's score. Now I'm going to save it, and we don't have a way to show the score yet, but we can do a playtest. I think debug layout. So here it comes. It's going to go towards that goal. Oh, okay. Well, it's going to go towards my goal, and I'm not going to. I blocked it accidentally. Okay. Okay, so it went through, destroyed the ball, and player 1's score went up 1. You can see it did work, but we don't have a way to start up the ball again, so that's going to be our next kind of thing we got to do. Okay, so now we've got our ball bouncing up and down, we've got our paddle that can move. I've been playing around with the directions too. You can change max speed, acceleration, deceleration. You can kind of play around with those and see like what feels right. I still feel like I'm kind of fine-tuning where I want it to feel as far as the inertia goes, but you can play around with those numbers and see how they feel to you. But we want to make it now so that the second controller, the second paddle being controlled by the computer, let's make that move as well. So let's highlight the CPU paddle, and we're going to go into, let's see, we've got behaviors, we've got up and down movement already, but we want to go into event sheet now. Let's add an event. And our paddle is CPU paddle. That's what we're going to change this event to. And under size and position, we want to click compare Y. And the Y is the vertical up and down value. And we're going to say less than, and the comparison is going to actually be for ball dot y. That is the y coordinate of our ball object. And if it's less than ball y, we're going to want to move the paddle. This will be under direction. Simulate control. So if it's less than ball Y, I'm going to move it up. I wonder if I have this backwards. We'll find out in a sec. But so let's do another CPU paddle. Compare with Y position greater than ball dot Y. Simulate control down. Let's see if that does that right. Let's save this and see if I got that correct. A little hard to tell because I died so quickly. Let's try that one more time. I think it looked like it was right though. I think that looks correct. we got to make it so that the ball respawns. That should probably be our next thing. Before we do showing the score, we should probably make it so the ball respawns after it goes out of bounds. System, let's wait like a few seconds and then we'll have it spawn another ball. So let's see. Let's have it wait. Let's say like 2 seconds. Let's see, we can always play around with that later. We'll set the position again. We'll just do the same thing we did when it first spawned the ball at the beginning of the game. 200, 200, and then random bullet angle of motion. And we could also do it instead of waiting 2 seconds, we could actually have it wait for the player to hit something like spacebar, and then it could spawn the ball as well. But for now, we can always change it later. Let's just do the same thing over here. So we will wait 2 seconds. Set the position. Bullet angle. To random 360. So let's try that right now. Let's see what it does. Okay, so it looks like I did get it backwards. The paddle is actually going away from the ball instead of to it. So we'll have to Oh. 2 seconds have gone by and it hasn't done anything. I will have to look into that. Alright, so new plan. We're going to go in, we're going to add an object, sprite, on the paddle layer. I'll make it a different color just so I'll be able to tell what I'm looking at here. Make a little square. And let's put him 200, wanted 200, 200. Actually, let's put them a little over here. Put them more in the middle. It's more like 200, 300. Okay. We're going to call him Spawner. And he will be invisible. No collisions. He can't do anything. We won't see him. Anything like that. But when the ball is initially destroyed, that first ball is initially destroyed, I'll need something to create a new ball. So he's going to spawn out of that. I think this will work. So let's go into live event. I deleted the things after wait 2 seconds. So let's see, add action. Ball. Oops, you know what? We want to do spawner, not ball. And from there, spawn another object, the object ball, on layer 1, which is the paddle layer. And I think 0 for the object's origin, that should be fine. Let's try that. And then let's see, we probably need to set the angle of motion still, I would imagine. So let's see if that'll work. Let me put that over here too. Then 1. $360. Save that. Let's try running it to see what it does. After the first one goes away, I still didn't fix the paddles there. Let's see, 2 seconds. Spawns another one, and it's in a random direction. Okay, that is awesome. So let's fix our not very smart paddles right now. So on the paddles, we're just going to change these directions. This one should be going down. This one should be going up. Let's see what it does there. Now it should make more sense. There we go. It's actually going towards the... Oops. Now, I think I might have done something weird because the layout looks... You can't actually see where the borders are anymore, so it stops there. Oop. So it's hard to tell where it's going to bounce off of. Did I do anything to the layout accidentally? Layout still looks the same. Maybe I just need to change this. I mean, I guess we can always put in, if we wanted to do like some kind of visual thing so you can see the outline a bit. I think I still need to make my paddles a little longer, but at least I can get some back and forth going here. There we go. Okay. So everything seems to be working now, so let's, as a final thing, let's add in the scoreboard. Text. And put it up here for now. And we probably want the text color to be something besides black on black. Let's just make it white. And let's change text to 0. And you can see you can change the font, you can change the size. Let's just make it something... Dana, let's make it bigger. And we'll make sure there's enough room so we can get to double digits if we want. Alright, so that's pretty good. Let's put it, we can even move this down a little bit so that this is above the border. So maybe it sits there. You can even sit on it because you can't see this when it starts. And we will call this player 1 score. Or player 1 scoreboard, because we already have a value called player 1 score, so I don't want to confuse things. And then let's do the same thing for player 2. Certain object text. Just put it here for now. What do I do for data? White. Whoops. Did not mean to delete the whole thing. I meant to change what was written in there. That's what I meant to do. Okay. I forget what size did I end up doing. This 24? 24. Let's get a little space. Put it right there. And let's go into the event sheets. And so now, when the ball goes to the player 2's goal, we're adding the score to player 1. We also want to change the score visually. So let's add another action. Oh, we didn't change the... Hold on, let's cancel that out. Let's go back to layout 1. I didn't name this anything. Player 2 scoreboard. Okay. Just to make sure things don't get too confusing here. Add another action. Player 1 scoreboard. Actually, I should always... You know what? Let's change what I was about to do. Let's say add an event. System. Every tick, which means essentially all the time. A tick is like a microsecond. So we're going to have it every time, or every tick, every instance. Player 1 scoreboard. Set the text. The text will equal player 1's score. I think this will work. Do the same thing with player 2 scoreboard. Set the text. Player 2 score. Oops. Player 2 score. Let's see if that works. Oh, what a weird... There's a weird shot there. But that might be enough to get him to mess up. And there you go. Now it looks like they're not exactly even as far as vertical. I'd probably want to change that a bit. But you can see it is now working fine. Alright, let's X out of there. Let me just change that layout. So, my position 162.4. It's just off a tiny bit. Let's just change that to 4 so it's vertically even. And that's pretty much it. You got a working Pong game for you against the CPU. And it doesn't take that long to do a complete game like that, and there's a lot of stuff you can adjust here. Like I said, I'm still not quite sure about how I feel about the movement, the speed, the acceleration, deceleration. You can change all that. You can also change those values for your CPU opponent if you want to make him faster. Something we didn't get into, you can make the ball start to speed up more if you want to look at making a global variable called speed, and maybe every time the ball hits the paddle, the speed increases. You could do something like that. You could make something in the middle here. You want to add another sprite. It's like a star, something with like strange jagged points to it, and have it so that the ball could possibly hit that. Or you can make it move up and down constantly to have like a wall that adds another element of randomness to the ball going back and forth. You could make it so the controls, instead of being up and down, are controlled by the mouse. There's a lot of things you can do here. I highly recommend going in and checking out all the documentation. But there you go. Start to finish, we made a Pong clone. Didn't take that long, and it's pretty simple to do just from the stuff that's in here. So I hope you guys followed along, and if you make any kind of adjustments to the Pong clone, send me your examples, tag the library through our social media, or you can send them to my email directly, which is in the newsletter, but it's also ppalmer@gcls.org. I'd love to see what you guys made. And thanks, guys. I hope you had fun making this. Get out there and make your own creations, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.